Hi,
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 I'm Aaryaa.
I'm Manasvi.
I'm Navneet.
I'm Nikita. This video has been made in order to give you a better understanding of the subject legal methods. We will be referring to the book Legal Methods, which is written by Dr. Davis Panadan Verghese. We have also sourced some additional information outside of the book to make this more interesting. I hope this video gives you a better understanding of the subject and the concepts we will be talking about. Both the natural law schools and the positivists were highly influenced by the individualist approach to human society. So far as natural law is concerned, this emerges most plainly in the social contract theory, which for so long formed an indispensable link in the structure of natural law ideology. This view maintained that society was formed by agreement of the individual who composed it. Natural law theorists believed that certain moral principles were inherent in nature and applicable to human conduct. The social contract theory was a key aspect of natural law ideology. This theory suggests that society is formed through an agreement among individuals who make up that society. In simple terms, the idea is that the people come together and agree to live in a society, forming a social contract where they agree to follow certain rules and regulations. Whereas positivists, on the other hand, focus more on the written laws created by the government. They believe that law is what the government declares as law, regardless of moral considerations. While positivism and natural law had differences, both were influenced by individualist perspective on the understanding how societies are structured and governed. There are some examples for natural law, which is like think of a community that decides to create rules for how they will live together. They might agree not to harm each other, respect each other's property, and follow certain shared values. This is like a social contract based on natural law principles. Whereas positivism example would be like consider a country where laws are created by the government and people are expected to follow these laws whether or not they agree with them. In positivism, the emphasis is on the authority of the government which made the laws. In summary, both natural law and positivism, despite their differences, share a common thread of individualism in their understanding of how societies come into being and how they are governed. The social contract theory is a key concept illustrating this.
Hey guys, today I'll be explaining about the idea of natural law. The central ideas of natural law theory is that there is a morality that serves as a standard against which human-made laws can be evaluated. According to this theory, law must align with certain moral principles, otherwise they lose their moral and legal character. Their belief is that law should be inherently moral to be considered legitimate. Perspectives from Socrates and Aristotle. Socrates believed that every person has an inner sense that helps them to distinguish between right and wrong. This inner insight guides individuals to understand and embrace moral values. According to Socrates, the basis for judging laws is the inner understanding. Aristotle. Aristotle told that he had different intake. He divided human life into two parts. First, humans and creations of God. Second, humans possesses reason. According to Aristotle, it is through reason that people can discover the principles of natural justice. Thomas Aquinas' definition of law. Thomas Aquinas defined law as the obedience of reason for the common good, created by those responsible for the community and announced to the public. Original contract for individuals. The natural law theory suggests that the formation of human society is based on an original contract among individuals. It was believed that before society, individuals lived in a state of nature, entered into a contract to form a community. The binding nature of this is social contract was derived from natural law, forming the foundation not only for positive laws but to the entire society. Key characteristics of theory. Rationalist. The theory is based on the idea that individuals make rational choices and agreements. Individualist. It emphasizes the importance of individual insight and reasoning is understanding and forming laws. Formal in character. The theory relies on formal agreements like social contract as the basis of laws and social organization. Cases and additional information. While the natural law theory has influenced various legal philosophies, it's important to note that it's a theoretical framework rather than a specific set of laws. One example often associated with natural law principle is that Nuremberg trials after the World War II. The trials sought to hold individuals accountable for actions that were considered morally reprehensible, even if those actions were explicitly illegal under existing laws. In essence, natural law theory asserts that law should align with moral principles, emphasizing the role of reason and rational agreements in shaping both individual actions and societal structures. So next I'll be explaining about the idea of positive law. What is positive law? Positive law is all about rules created by the people and government. Unlike natural law or fictional ideas, positive law is about practical rules that those in power make for a society to function. Utilitarian, basis and social contract. Positive law is like a set of rules you and your friends agree upon for a game. The rules are chosen to make everyone happy, and in this idea is similar to a social contract in a positive law and agreement for everyone's well-being based on a rational choices and human nature. John Austin's psychological approach. Think of a teacher giving a warning to a student. John Austin believed that law works because individuals fear consequences like pain or punishment. He saw law as commands from those in power, sovereigns, to those they govern. Example, if a police officer signals you to stop, it's a command, it's a law, backed by a threat of a ticket, legal sanction. Clason's rejection of the psychological approach. Hans Classen disagreed with Austin's focus on fear. He said legal science should only focus on formal rules separate from psychology. Analogy. If laws are like the rules of a board game, Classen is saying legal science should study the rules, formal patterns, and not emotions or motivation of the players. Example, in a board game, understand the rules like studying the formal aspects of law without delving into people's feelings. Cases and additional info. Case example. Consider the legal requirement to wear seat belts. It's a positive law created by authorities to ensure safety. Failure to follow duty may lead to fines, legal sanctions. So moving on to additional info. Positive law is vital to maintain order in society, while John Austin emphasized fear as the motivator. Hans Kelsen stressed the importance of focusing on structure of laws rather than people's emotion in legal studies. In summary, positive law is about practical rules made by people in authority for society. John Austin saw fear as a motivator while Hans Kelsen emphasized studying the formal aspects of law. Real world examples like seatbelts laws show positive law operates. On to the next topic, the idea of law, individualism. During the 18th and 19th century, individualism, thinking focusing on personal freedom, took a more economic tone. As the Industrial Revolution and capitalism grew, individualism evolved beyond just a philosophical or political idea, became a slogan known as the laissez-faire. The laissez-faire. Imagine a playground where kids are playing a game without any interference from the adults. Laissez-faire, in simple terms, is like saying that the law should interfere as little as possible with people's freedom, especially in economic activities. It's about letting individuals make their own choices, particularly in economic matters. Moving on to Henry's Main's idea. Henry Main spread the idea that society progresses from a system where people have set roles, status, to a system where they can freely make agreements, contacts, according to him. According to him, individual freedom to make any contract is a sign of an advanced society. The idea led to the policy of the law actively protecting this freedom, particularly in economic matters. Example, think of a lemonade stand. If someone wants to sell lemonade and another person wants to buy it, they can freely make a deal without the law getting in the way. This freedom to make agreements symbolizes a developed society. Cases and additional info. Case as example. Consider historical labor laws. In the early stages of industrialization, some argue that laws limiting working hours or condition in mines or factories were wrong. They believed workers should have the freedom to choose the conditions they accepted or rejected. Additional info. The laissez-faire approach has been debated over the time. While it emphasizes individual freedom, Critics argue that it may lead to exploitation and unfair working conditions. Balancing individual freedom and social well-being continues to be a topic of discussion in economic and legal spheres.
The idea of law, collectivism. Imagine a tug of war between two teams. In this historical battle of ideas, the forces of laissez-faire, which believed in minimal government interference and letting individuals freely make economic choices, lost to another team. This opposing team championed a philosophy that prioritized the well-being of society as a whole and believed the legislative intervention was necessary to create essential conditions for it. Let's talk about transition to social welfare. The winning team argued that the focus should shift from letting individuals do whatever they want, that is laissez-faire, to actively working for the greater good of society. They believed in the importance of laws and regulations to improve overall happiness and material well-being of everyone. Let me give you an example. Think of a playground where kids want to play different games. The laissez-faire approach is like letting each child decide their own game without rules. On the other hand, the social welfare approach is like introducing some fair rules to ensure everyone has a good time and no one feels left out. Cases and additional information. Case example, labor laws. One significant area of change was in labor laws. Legislation began to set standards for working conditions, maximum working hours and minimum wages. For instance, the Fair Labor Standards Act in the US established a minimum wage and a maximum working hours to protect workers. Additional information. The shift towards social welfare marked a change in how governments approach economic and social policies. It recognized that sometimes intervention is necessary to ensure fairness, equality, and overall well-being. This philosophy led to the establishment of various social programs and regulations aimed at improving living conditions for the broader population. Now we'll be talking about the next topic, idea of law, societal view. Societal view of law has 5 main important points. Under the first topic, Rousseau's idea of general will. Imagine a group of friends deciding where to go for a picnic. Rousseau's idea is like saying the decision should be based on what everyone collectively wants, not just what one person prefers. He believed that societal unity comes from general will, distinct from individual desires. The second important point is Edmund Burke's emphasis on tradition. Think of a family recipe that has been passed down through generations. Burke's emphasis on tradition is like recognizing the value of historical roots in a social group. He rejected viewing a nation just as a business partnership. Instead, he valued its historical and traditional aspects. A case example for this is the preservation of historical landmarks or cultural traditions can be seen as a reflection of Burke's emphasis on the importance of tradition. Third point is Hegel's concept of state as a metaphysical entity. Imagine a team working towards a common goal. Hegel's idea is like saying that the team is more important than an individual player. He believed that the state as a metaphysical entity was superior to all individuals. The state represents the embodiment of reason and the peak of civilization. Let's see a case example for his ideas. Hegel's ideas influenced political thought, contributing to a concept of nation-state. For example, the unification of Germany in the 19th century reflected the idea of a unified state embodying reason. Coming to the fourth point, totalitarian ideas and Hegel's influence. Think of a leader having complete control over a group and dictating everything. Totalitarian ideas like Nazism, fascism, subscribe to the idea of the nation and state as the highest reality. Individuals were entirely subordinated to the state, eroding personal conscience and morality. Case example, the rise of Nazi Germany under Adolf Hitler and fascist Italy under Benito Mussolini exemplifies the implementation of totalitarian ideology. Next point, Nietzsche, Wagner and Chamberlain's perspective. Imagine a group following the guidance of a charismatic leader. Nietzsche, Wagner and Chamberlain believe that the law is not just a set of rules, but an expression of the nation's will, conveyed by an inspired leader. This perspective led to a more mystical understanding, law and morality. Case example, the charismatic leadership in various totalitarian regimes where leaders were considered almost divine reflects this perspective. Additional information. Hegel's philosophy, while initially rational, took an irrational turn in later interpretations, contributing to the totalitarianism. Totalitarian ideologies, rooted in the subordination of the individual to the state, have had profound consequences in terms of human suffering and the suppression of individual aspirations. In summary, these philosophical perspectives influenced how societies viewed a law. From emphasizing collective wills to subordinating individuals to the state, the consequences as seen in totalitarian regimes illustrate the impact of these ideas on human history. Coming to the next topic, the idea of law, the economic force of society. Economic forces and the idea of law have 4 concepts under them. Hegel's dialectic method being the first one.
Imagine a conversation where people have conflicting opinions, and through discussion, a new understanding emerges. Hegel's dialectic method is like saying contradictions and conflicts in ideas lead to the new synthesis, a new way of thinking. He applied this to human history, believing that conflicts and ideas drive progress towards the ultimate realization of reason. Coming to the second topic, Karl Marx and dialectical materialism. Picture a seesaw with economic forces on one side and the ideas on the other. Karl Marx argued that it's not just ideas that shape the world, but economic forces, especially in capitalism. His dialectical materialism concept emphasized how contradictions in the capitalistic system would lead to revolutionary changes. Marx envisioned a future communist society where there would be no need for coercion and everyone's needs would be met. Case example. The Russian Revolution of 1917, influenced by the Marxist ideas, led to the establishment of the Soviet Union, attempting to build a communist society. Economic foundations and ideology. Think of a building where the foundation represents economic arrangements and the structure above symbolizes ideas and laws. Marx argued that you can't understand society without exploring its economic foundations. He believed that the law was not just a set of rules, but a reflection of economic order, institutionalizing the prevailing ideology of the dominant class. Case example. During these times of economic inequality, legal systems often reflect and sometimes perpetuate these inequalities, favoring the dominant classes. Coming to Marx's contribution to sociology. Consider a puzzle where each piece represents a different aspect of society. Marx made a major contribution to sociology by suggesting that law is distilled from the economic order and serves as an institutionalized form of ideology. The dominant classes use law to coerce the masses into obedience. A case example for this would be the analysis of labor laws and their evolution in response to economic changes, which reflects Marx's idea of the relationship between economic forces and legal institutions. Additional information would be, while Marx's perspective highlights the influence of economic forces on law and ideology, some critics argue that it oversimplifies the relationship, as ideas can also shape economic systems. The Marxist perspective remains a significant framework for understanding societal structures. In essence, these perspectives suggest that economic forces play a crucial role in shaping ideas, laws, and overall structure of society. The real-world examples demonstrate how these concepts have influenced historical events and societal changes.
Idea of law, the science of sociology applied to law. Now we are going to talk about sociological perspective on law. First, we'll start with Bentham's scientific approach. Now imagine studying law and crime as if they were subjects in a science. Picture society as a giant puzzle waiting to be solved. Comte coined the term sociology, suggesting that studying human behavior in society is just as scientific as studying natural phenomena. It's about understanding how people function together in a structured way. For example, sociological studies on crime rates in different communities demonstrate how scientific methods can be applied to understanding societal patterns. Sharing sociological perspective on law. Think of laws as referees in a game where different interests clash. He viewed law not just as a set of rules, but as a method to bring order to society's competing interests. Laws should act as impartial mediators, resolving conflicts and harmonizing societal needs. A case example for this would be environmental regulations can be seen as laws aimed at mediating between economical interests and need for ecological sustainability. The fourth would be Max Weber's legal systems reflecting society. Imagine legal systems as mirrors reflecting the philosophy of society. Weber explained how modern Western law is shaped by underlying philosophy of the society it operates in. He highlighted the bureaucratization of the modern state and emphasized the importance of legal principles in decision making. Another case example for this is the development of administrative law governing interactions between individuals and government agencies. Reflects the bureaucratization of modern states. Fifth is Ehrlich's living law and societal order. Imagine a society with its own unwritten rules governing human interactions. He referred to this as the living law. He argued that lawyers need to understand not only formal rules, but also the normative inner order of living law. This inner order reflects the dynamic and evolving nature of society. A case example for this would be customary laws in indigenous communities, passed down through generations, showcasing how living laws adapts in societal changes. In essence, these sociological perspectives on law emphasizes the scientific study of societal structures, the role of law in mediating conflicting interests, and the constant adaptation of legal systems to the evolving nature of society. Roscoe Pound and American sociology. I'll be explaining 4 points in this. The first would be social engineering and legal process. Imagine law as a tool for shaping society, like an engineer designing a structure. Roscoe saw law as a form of social engineering. He believed that societal problems often stem from ignorance, and with a better understanding, solutions would naturally emerge. Law, according to Pound, are deeply rooted in the social fabric and evolves as society changes. The second is conflicts of interest and social control. Think of a courtroom as a stage where competing interests in society are examined and judged. Pound viewed the legal process as a means of social control, especially carried out by the courts. He focused on two key issues: how to categorize and coordinate conflicting interests, and how courts resolve conflicts. Interests are dynamic, changing with societal needs, and courts play a crucial role in evaluating and resolving conflicts. A case example for this would be the evolution of privacy laws in response to technological advancements reflects the courts adapting the new societal needs. Third would be evaluation of conflicting interests. Picture conflicts like puzzles that need to be carefully evaluated. Pound identified 3 ways courts handle conflict interests. First, they may stick to past patterns, risking being outdated. Second, they may evaluate disputes based on current societal values. Lastly, courts may rely on their instincts, judging on case-by-case basis. Pound emphasized the needs for courts to stay connected with the living laws of their community. A case example for this would be land uses conflicts where property right clashes with the environmental concerns showcase the need for courts to evaluate conflicting interests. Fourth would be the process of evaluation. Imagine courts as decision makers navigating through societal values. Pound stressed that courts can't escape making decisions based on their ideology. He advocated for courts to consciously recognize and align with the operative values of society rather than treating legal decisions as purely technical exercise. The process of evaluations involves understanding societal needs, moral values, and policy considerations. A case example for this would be legal decisions regarding free speech may vary based on societal values and interpretation of the First Amendment. Let me give you some additional information regarding this. Pound highlighted the interconnectedness of law, morals, and policy, emphasizing that they are distinct but inevitably intertwined. The evolving nature of society requires courts to adapt and evaluate conflicting interests, making conscious efforts to align with the societal values. In essence, Pound's sociological perspective emphasizes the dynamic role of law in shaping society, resolving conflicts, and the need for courts to be attuned to the changing needs and values of the community.
The idea of law. Legal realisms in the US. Legal realisms emerged as a reaction against the rigid and formalistic approaches of legal positivism. It posits that all laws are shaped by prevailing and interests and public policy. Unlike strict adherence to abstract rules, legal realism argues that judges also consider societal needs and public policy when making decisions, making the law more subjective than a set of fixed rules. The legal realism suggests that laws are not just about rules. They're influenced by what society needs, what policymakers think is right. Judges, according to this view, aren't just following rules. They're making choices based on their understanding of social issues. Some additional information. Legal realism involves predicting how judges will make decisions in the future, aiming for better methods to foresee legal outcomes. It seeks to enhance the legal system's functioning, making it more effective and controlling the society, achieving societal goals, which is ever changing.
We can take a case example of Plessy versus Ferguson, 1896. The legal realism perspective can be seen in cases like Plessy versus Ferguson, where the Supreme Court's decision, influenced by social norms and policies, established the separate versus equal doctrine, allowing racial segregation. Legal realism has influenced the understanding of law by highlighting its dynamic nature, shaped by societal needs and policies, and has sparked ongoing debates on the role of subjectivity in legal decision making. Pragmatism is a philosophy that became popular in the United States. It suggests that an idea or belief is considered true if it works well in practice. The meaning of an idea is based on the practical results it produces, and ideas that don't work well in reality are discarded. Practical consequences. Pragmatists focus on the real world outcomes of ideas, emphasizing the practical impact on people's lives. Pragmatism suits the American way of life, emphasizing practicality and results over theoretical or abstract concepts. A case example that we can take is Brown versus Board of Education. Brown versus Board of Education of 1954. Pragmatism influenced the landmark case where the Supreme Court ruled the racial segregation schools were inherently unequal. The decision prioritized practical consequences and societal well-being over maintaining a segregated education system. Pragmatism has had a significant impact on various fields, promoting problem-solving approach and emphasizing the importance of practical outcomes in shaping beliefs and decisions. James believed in finding truths through various continuous experimentation, focusing on what actually works. This idea aligns with the American value of value achievements. In the context of law, it suggests that making correct legal decisions isn't about following strict rules, but adapting and experimenting based on the specific case. Some additional information. Continuous process. James' philosophy sees the pursuit of truth and decision-making as an ongoing and adaptive process rather than a fixed set of rules. Experimentation in law. Jurists adopting this approach believe in experimenting with legal decisions, adapting to the unique circumstances of each case rather than rigidly following established principles. Let's take a look at Plessy and Ferguson of 1896 again. In this case, the separate but equal doctrine was established, allowing racial segregation. If James's philosophy had been applied, there might have been more experimentation in adapting legal decisions to achieve better societal outcomes. Holmes, a key figure in legal realism, argued that law isn't a fixed set of rules, but a tool to predict court decisions. Additional information. Holmes was a prominent figure in the legal realism movement, which advocated looking beyond strict rules to understand the broader social context of legal decisions. He criticized the rigid professionalism that solely emphasized legal rules, believing it was detrimental to both the legal profession can regard place. Holmes' critique was that the rigid professionalism that solely emphasized legal rules, believing it was detrimental to both the legal profession and the public. Case example is Schneck versus United States, 1990. Holmes' famous clear and present danger test was applied in this case, restricting free speech during wartime. Holmes' realist perspective would encourage considering the broader social context when making decisions about limiting individuals' freedoms. The Chinese societies. Unlike Western societies, some Eastern societies, especially in China, didn't view law as a way to enforce universal rules. Instead, they focus on resolving conflicts by finding a fair balance between different perspectives. This approach, often called the justice of Kadi under the palm tree, involves meditation or arbitration rather than strict adherence to fixed rules. Additional information. Eastern legal philosophy. Chinese legal thought emphasizes harmony and mediation, aiming for a balanced resolution rather than a strict legal ruling. Kadi under the palm tree. This phrase refers to the traditional way of resolving disputes in a calm and fair manner often associated with Eastern justice system. Case example we can take is of Confucian legalism. Confucian, an influential philosophy in Chinese culture, emphasizes moral values and social harmony. In legal matters, the focus on ethical conduct and restoring balance rather than punitive measures. A criticism for this is that legal realism, especially its more extreme versions, faced criticism for traditional lawyers who thought realists cared less about establishing rules more than about personal biases. Critics argued that realists sometimes overlook the clear rules in many legal areas and focus too much on uncertain aspects. Some also emphasize that legal rules aren't as uncertain as the realists suggest. Some additional information. Realism versus traditionalism. Traditional lawyers criticized legal realism for allegedly discarding well-established legal rules, relying heavily on subjective factors, focus on uncertainty. Realists often concentrated on legal areas with uncertainties, but critics argued that this perspective didn't represent an entire legal landscape. The idea of law. The Scandinavian realists. Scandinavian legal realism, influenced by the American movement, emphasizes understanding legal rules by exploring their sociological background. It seems valid that law as predicting court decisions and urges studying how legal processes truly function beyond written rules. Unlike the practical American approach, the Scandinavian outlook is philosophical, delving into the foundations of law. Some arguments, much like King's imaginary clothes in a tale, law might be more about perception than concrete reality. Some additional information. Philosophical exploration. Scandinavian legal realism takes a deeper, more philosophical approach compared to a practical emphasis on its American counterpart. Law as perception. The idea of law might be a product of societal perception and understanding rather than a fixed, real challenges traditional legal concepts. A case example. Felles Jopet versus Norway in 1971. While not directly related, this case involving agricultural cooperatives in Norway reflects how legal decisions are influenced by sociological factors, aligning with Scandinavian realists emphasizing on understanding the social backgrounds of legal rules. Carl Olive Krona, a key figure in legal realism, challenges the traditional view of law. He argues that a binding nature of legal rules is a psychological construct, influenced by past beliefs. In essence, law is just words on paper, but these words trigger thoughts and behaviors in society. Olive Krona suggests that the power of law comes from psychological conditioning and the monopoly of force, especially during revolutions. While he highlighted the role of psychology, he acknowledged that law is a unique blend of language, concepts, and sociological patterns crucial to human social existence. Some additional information. Olive Krona emphasizes that law is a form of language conveying normative ideas about obligatory rules. Psychological conditioning. The psychological impact of legal concepts play a considerable role in making law effective in the society. Olive Krona is part of a broader movement challenging traditional views, asserting the legal concepts that are not tangible entities but intricate elements of human life. A case example is Brown versus Board of Education of 1954. While not directly related, the case ending racial segregation in US schools demonstrates the profound impact legal decisions can have on societal behavior, supporting Olive Krona's argument about the psychological influences of law. So that's the video, guys. I hope it helped you understand the idea of law a lot better. And I hope the additional information was actually helpful to understand the concept better. And thank you for watching.